So hello and welcome to episode 10 of I'm Fine, a chat between myself, Damo, and someone who likes duck egg blue so much he's painted his entire body in it, Mark.
It's worn off now.
Sure.
It was 10 years ago.
There's a chat around the subjects of health, wealth, well-being, fitness, sport, conspiracy, and anything else this crazy life throws at us. We're all work in progress, and this podcast is no exception. In short, it's a poke at our perfectly imperfect lives. And if we can make just one person feel like they're not alone in all this madness, then our work here is done. Coming up in Warm Up and Stretch, we've got some bookmarks and apologies. We're never going to get away from apologies, I don't think. Work-life ballet, we're going to look at passions coming and going, and Drop and Give Me 20. We're going to look at challenges. How are you, right?
I'm good. We've told people now that we do these back-to-back on a Saturday, don't we?
Yeah.
So the I'm good is that having walked into the kitchen, got some more coffee,
Come and pretend.
and seen my football team are 4-1 down. Yeah, it's
Are they?
yeah.
Ouch. You feeling better?
Well,
Ever since the last hour I asked you.
I'm feeling good.
You sound better.
I thought the voice would have gone deeper. If anything, it hasn't, which is
I think you're getting
slightly
better.
disappointing. Yeah, I think this coffee. We should market this coffee. It's made me feel better.
You mean someone should sell it?
Yeah, go down to Costa
Don't
before you
bring
get
that up. I'm
unmasked. You just got over that.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'll ever get over that.
You know when you say, "Oh, Mark," and then you do a humorous reference.
Yeah.
I think I need to do a few for you now and again.
Do you?
Well, yeah, I do.
Why do you feel like I'm being left out?
Yeah.
Like I'm fine with not.
Well, I did get a bit of feedback that why do you speak 90% of the time? Me.
Yeah. Well, you're the talent. We've already established that.
Yeah, I think 90% was harsh.
Yeah, probably.
High 80s.
I can't believe I got naked for this episode.
No. But well,
and you just
well
kept your
played.
clothes on. I just thought I'd go for, I thought you'd go with it after the talking about getting naked and being I thought you'd go along with it, but you didn't.
I don't want to get a chill.
So,
But fair play for you for doing it.
yeah.
Why am I looking up and down as if like...
What? As if I am naked.
Yeah. No, you are.
Oh, it's
illusion
radio.
smash.
Come on. Yeah, I've seen you 2 days on the trot,
Mm.
haven't I? And you're wearing what I call civvies because
Yeah.
I didn't realize until I saw you in jeans and a jumper that probably
But
the
I
only
have them.
yeah, and then probably the only other time I have seen you out of your gym kit is when we've gone away for weekends. And that's probably
You've never seen me in England in jeans.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you feel dressed up?
It does
feel
feel
like you're making
strange
an
having
effort for
clothing.
once.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does feel different. It does feel different from, shorts on top.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've noticed your notebook. There was me talking about duck egg blue.
Now I've gone.
I'm quite disappointed you've got a sensible grown up.
Well,
And it's almost that
it was. I'm just showing you the front page.
the front page says Grandpa's recipe book.
Yeah.
Enjoy yum yum on it.
Doesn't have anything in
But
it.
it's that grown up. It even says what's it say on the bottom?
It says it's embossed. I love embossed stuff, don't you?
Mm.
Or raised stuff.
Or debossed, or which that's D.
Oh, is it? So
Oh, no.
is embossed raised?
Oh no,
and
that's
debossed?
embossed. That's embossed.
Okay. Bit like entwined and intertwined.
Nothing like it.
Look those up. First class gentleman. It says.
Yeah.
Don't know what
You've
that
really
means.
gone up, I think.
I'm wearing proper clothes. I've got a proper
I
notebook.
know. I don't know what's happened. Come prepared.
I'm
I'm
a
a bit worried.
successful podcaster.
Yeah. I was going to mention TikTok. As we were just standing there talking and drinking coffee,
Hmm.
I got another TikTok notification
Okay.
which says "Waiting for Bay,"
Hmm.
which is kids speak for
Yeah.
partner, boyfriend, girlfriend,
Yeah.
with a picture of a lady.
Yeah.
Which in the little picture it looks like her blouse is quite loosely buttoned.
Okay.
This is the thing I was saying the other week. I keep getting messages like that, and only this week I've decided to click on them and see what happens.
Okay.
And it's been pretty disappointing, actually.
Right.
So I think it's the classic clickbait. They've kind of gone, a bit of a saucy kind of message and a saucy picture. You open it up and they kind of sat on a sofa just fully clothed. That's not the disappointing bit. just with some type coming up, and they're not really saying anything about anything. And then you look at how many views they've got, and they're like 17,000 views. You're like, you're not even doing anything.
I don't think you have to do anything on TikTok to get views.
Well, maybe we should do one.
What, TikTok?
We should do one.
I got 1,000 views on TikTok for just a pile of crap that I did. I've shown you that sort of stupid thing I do, hanging, pretending I can walk in the air.
Walking in the air.
I was dressed as a snowman. Yeah,
Oh, you're hanging off the bars.
yeah, I got over 1,000 views for
Did
that.
you?
Yeah.
Ah, you're
So
practically
on
TikTok
every
master.
media platform. Yeah. No, there
What, and
was.
you haven't done anything for us? There's me working my arse off trying to market this thing.
Mhm.
There's,
And I've
there's
got all
you
this.
just bosh out some mediocre content.
I save all the gold for this. So
Okay. No, maybe I need to get you doing some TikToks for us.
I think TikTok is, I don't know. I think it's sort of time and place and age appropriate. I don't think it's
Isn't it
meant
just
for us.
what Vine was a few years ago? But you couldn't swipe a Vine, I don't think.
Yeah,
Maybe
and run
you
by
can.
the Chinese though, isn't it?
Yeah, they're okay.
No, I mean in terms of the control, more casual racism.
I don't know where you were going. So I should let you.
No. Just in terms of the political.
Right.
Why is TikTok a thing? That's the point I'm making.
And you said that US have banned it. Is that
Well, Trump's trying to,
trying
but
to.
it's like it basically exploded during lockdown, and there's the whole. We haven't talked about conspiracy theories. We will at some stage, but there's that
I
whole
think that's going
thing.
to be. Say that's going to be the conspiracy that we never do.
Yeah, the whole of TikTok has absolutely exploded. And why is it that with all the expertise around Facebook and Instagram, that a Chinese organization suddenly came to be one of the biggest players and massive market share from nowhere, and then in lockdown has just exponentially grown?
Yeah.
I think there is some theories that it's quite concerning. I think that's Trump's argument, isn't it? That a Chinese organization has that element of control of, what is it?
Yeah.
However many 100 million Americans.
Yeah, but I'd imagine if it was something he could wield in his favor, he'd be
Well,
all over it, wouldn't he?
Yeah, Instagram are doing Reels now, which is just exactly the same. They haven't even tried to be unique, I don't think.
Yeah.
What I've watched has been just TikTok under
No,
a
I
different
haven't.
name.
Yeah, we haven't talked about conspiracies.
No.
Almost anything that anyone does, you could argue there's another side, there's an ulterior motive to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've often thought, why is there a need for one? And is it the kind of suspicion of anyone? Obviously, there's some things that just aren't true, and
Why does something have to be a conspiracy? Why can't it just be what it is?
Yeah, why can't it just be, oh, that's just a thing that's happened? And until my incident in Costa last week,
right,
or earlier this week, then I started to think about the track and trace and the NHS app that came out this week.
Yeah.
Then I started thinking about potentially the vaccine for COVID, them putting some kind of tracking device in the vaccine, which just sounds bonkers to me. And then there's the memes going around going, oh, they're talking about that. Yeah. You've got a phone in your pocket, which pretty much knows where you are and what you're doing almost every second of the day.
Yeah.
So what you want about, it's here. You have it in your pocket.
Yeah.
And then you start to get into, you think about TikTok and data being power, and how like anything of it that has power or value, it gets into the wrong hands. And I was starting to think about the track and trace app, and I was starting thinking, well, isn't that? And then it suddenly kind of clicked why it could be a conspiracy. And I guess conspiracies often end with power, don't they? And who's in charge and what is the real reason for them doing it.
Yeah.
And generally, the conspiracy come through about either we are being played for the benefit of evil.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I kind of saw it.
I tend to think that we're being played for vested interests. So we're going to talk about vitamin D later today. There is no massive financial gain from vitamin D production. It's really cheap. It's readily available. No one has a monopoly on it. Therefore, in whose interests is it to promote it? And you could say, well, it's in the government in terms of looking after its population. It should be promoting it. So when we're going to discuss it a little bit later, my point is, if GlaxoSmithKline had the monopoly on vitamin D,
yes,
and a government minister had just sold £5 million worth of shares in them, then I think it would be promoted. So that's why I think we
talked about
played.
with the sarcopenia.
There's nothing to gain from telling people.
So that's what they're doing. But then I started thinking about the track and trace app, and actually, if you could be really cynical, and I guess if you want to get into the conspiracy, that is a great way through fear is to collect data on us. The governments, arguably in America, are getting into power using the data.
Yeah, and just
but you could argue this government doesn't have half, or any of the governments in the world don't have anywhere near the data that a few private companies have.
No, and exactly. And I've just got in front of me on the phone here. We alluded to this. So a client sent this through to me, and this particular client sort of keeps me on my toes, because sometimes we'll question something I've said or send some information that adds something to my discussion that I've had with him. And he sent this podcast called Making Sense by Sam Harris, and this is called Welcome to the Cult Factory. We'll put all the references. If you've got 47 minutes in your life, I would just say I think I've been more blown away from this than anything other than our first 9 episodes.
You say listen to that. If you've got
good.
47 minutes,
then
listen to that rather than us.
Rather than us, yeah. I mean, put this down now, because we'll be going for another 47.
We might as well just play that now, right? I think we have another 47 minutes left.
But some of the stuff that comes out is just what you've been saying there. That the data that's being held by everyone, and the fact that we're being played by these just a few organizations. And I think this isn't a sort of fear of Big Brother, but if you listen to that podcast, because they can say it far better than I can, but some of the things they talk about there is the fact that artificial intelligence is pushing us in certain directions. So when you show an interest in something, the algorithms will push you further towards that. And they make the point in that, if you look at the situation in America at the moment, it's just a stark duality of you're a Democrat and you're left, or you're a Republican and you're right, and no one agrees with anyone in the middle. And some of the vitriol that's coming out in some of the protests there, but and also the extent of the protests. Looking at stuff like Portland, it's been I think over 100 days of rioting. We don't know that in this country, but like literally people are being killed every day.
Yeah.
And so this I don't know, this chasm in America at the moment, what they say in this podcast is, why has that come about? And they're not doing this on a conspiracy theory. They're saying a lot of it is coming from Russia, Iran, Turkey. Because if you're going to bring down America, you can't do it with nuclear weapons, but you can let America eat itself. And so a lot of the Marxist stuff that's coming out is going to be from other countries. That they were saying with some of the Twitter addresses that just robots, but they're so accurate now that people are actually engaging with people as if they're real people. And there was recently a case of a professor who was a very outspoken professor in some psychology or sociology or something, who died, and her death was announced on Twitter, and a lot of people wrote in about what influence she'd been and how fantastic. She didn't ever exist. It was a completely made up Twitter account, and it had just been run for years as if she'd said things and done things, and people had, she had tens of thousands of followers, and then it was announced she died, and people are going, oh, I'm going to miss her. And she never ever existed, which is an interesting experiment of how people will just believe something that seems realistic. It's scary.
It is scary. A seamless link to an apology I have. Annalie got in touch and said, I think this was maybe episode 2 or 3, I can't remember. We've done so many now. We're in double figures, which is crazy. She said, you left us hanging on, well, I did. I left our lovely listeners hanging on the difference between volume and loudness. Told you it was seamless. Which I did. So it was one of those things where I didn't think anyone would be actually interested in it. But surprising how many people wanted to know.
Yeah, one.
And she can't be alone. That's like, that's the whole point of this. They can't just be. But also, it was nice that she didn't feel that she could look it up. She'd rather me kind of explain. Wasn't in a hurry for the information.
She's not a sound engineer.
No.
I'm really struggling with this album. If only I knew the difference.
We can wait 3 weeks. Loudness is actually a subjective term. It can't really be measured, because what might be loud to me might not be loud to you. But someone has created a kind of the Lufts measurement, because sound can often be the amount of sound over a period of time. So they kind of measured it, where volume is essentially the loudness or intensity of a sound at any one point. Does that help at all?
So if the volume was set at 8, that volume is a constant. The way people hear it might be different.
Yeah, that might be louder or quieter to you, depending on your
hearing.
view. So it's actually it's actually quite hard to get a measurement of it. But and like I guess this podcast has proved that the first few weren't loud enough.
No.
Even if you turn your volume up. So
Yeah.
that might not have even helped at all.
It's helped me.
Has it?
Yeah.
Good.
Because normally I
Were
drift
you-
off
and-
on anything technical, but that kept me entranced,
Yeah.
entwined.
You mentioned football.
Yeah.
You're to bring it up as soon as you're down. You still losing, or is it finished now?
I put everything into the podcast. I was listening to podcasts the other day, and the guy's phone, you could just hear it in the background,
What?
his text alerts. And I'm thinking,
What?
no.
Really?
Yeah. A big podcast. And I'm thinking, I don't want to know how popular you are. So no,
Blimey.
I think we look things up here if it's relevant, but I'm not going to
Mm.
check on the score. They're not going to come back from 4-1 down anyway. So,
But it kind of came up in our business meeting in the Crafty Egg.
yeah,
Plug.
which was fully paid for. They didn't. I
It-
thought
no,
they'd
you-
recognise us. I thought they'd go.
We didn't even announce ourselves.
No,
Maybe we should have done that because I actually said we're going to come down.
that's
And they went great, and then just
It's
with too
fairly
shy.
self-effacing, isn't it? We've mentioned you. We're going to give you a plug, and we're going to
Yeah.
sit at the window shyly and not
Yeah.
even mention who we are.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, we're kind of talking about the passion for music, listening to music, coming in and going away.
Yeah.
And you also said you had that about football, which I guess is
Yeah.
the whole point. You can all the things you really love, you could suddenly not love for 5 minutes or 5 weeks or 5 years, and then come back to. It's quite interesting how you kind of
yeah.
can come in and out of it. But football's been a massive part of your life. Hasn't
Yeah, and football has never left. The passion for football, as you know, we did on one of the early podcasts. I gave a very, very long story,
it? Yeah.
surprisingly,
Yeah.
about a football event. It was quite an interesting story in some respects, but we just didn't feel the need of putting it in. And I think my passion has gone for 2 reasons. I think one reason is where I'm at.
Mhm.
I think football would rank along with music as things that were an important stimulant
Yeah.
to me, and so I've eradicated those. But the second thing is, I think the whole things of the crowd not being there takes away such a massive part for me.
Yeah.
It's just, even if I'm not watching the match, just listening on the radio to
Yeah.
silence or pretend sound just takes away the
Okay,
essence
yeah.
of football. So yeah, I think I've lost love. I know I was going to check this, I won't, but I think the manager that we've got came in December. I think we've only had 2 wins since December. And it's like, that's a long old time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, COVID or not, it's been a long
Yeah.
old time. So I'm not going to leave the team. I'm not going to go, we're leaving, I'm not interested. We're losing, I'm not interested. But I think, yeah, the passion has gone similar to music,
Yeah.
but similar, not being able to go down there and have the atmosphere.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a big loss.
Yes, yeah. I can't listen to the football with the
No.
imitated crowd sound on. I just can't do it. And it's also, I quite like listening to the noise. You can hear all the players talking
Yeah,
to each other. So
yeah.
it sounds like you're just watching something down the park on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they're definitely missing 10, 20%, aren't they? I mean,
Mm.
it's almost impossible to measure unless you did some kind of study about how far they ran, how quickly they ran, or if you could measure intensity of a football game, actually how much the crowd would lift them and spur them on. And I mean, it has to. I mean,
Yeah,
undoubtedly.
it's bound to. There's been a study. God, we are so seamless at the moment. There's been a study around being spotted as in weightlifting, having someone to help you.
Yeah.
And the particular study, which I'm not going to be able to give the reference to, but I can find it, showed a 17% increase in endurance or in weights lifted by someone who was being spotted and encouraged. And there was the feeling or the feedback was that it was not wanting to let someone else down.
Mhm.
So if you've got someone
Yeah.
there and you're doing a lift, if I'm there by myself and I do 6 and I convince myself that's okay,
Yeah.
if I told you I'm doing 8,
Yeah.
it's that bit around not wanting to let you
Yeah.
down or not wanting to disappoint.
And there's a bit about, I'm not going to let him help me as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
I'm going to really dig in here because I want to do this myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have one client and he knows who he is and you know who he is, but he will not let me spot him. He will just tell me to F off every time I come near him. It's like the vitriol is mad.
I think I want to see it.
It's like, it's real
you've
anger.
described it, and I think, yeah.
Although I've got my own back, I'm just going to read this very quickly. This was from this client this morning, and I think I've referenced this before. This is what makes PTing so fine. I thought you would want to know that every time I sit down for a shit, I think of you, Red Heart. And I said, you might need to explain more if I'm able to use this in the podcast. My legs are tender, my glute is sore, and I've said you are welcome. And that was
I
the
thought it was
dialogue.
going to be a poem for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, he can't move basically.
Good. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah,
Oddly.
yeah.
Yeah. I often think about you on the toilet as well.
Okay, don't go down there.
Okay, so time for drop and give me 20.
And today it's through the square window.
Yeah.
Why did that make me think of play school?
Because it's
Play schoolish?
plinky
Yeah.
plonky and childish.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What's today's subject?
Today's subject is, I thought you were prepared with your black book.
Remind me.
Challenges.
Challenges. So, one of the things I think I wanted to discuss, or maybe just not a lot of content, just to put it out there, is that I've mentioned on a few occasions how mindfulness is helping me. And I'm aware from my past that when I'm challenged on things, because I think I'm always right.
Yeah.
But I think because I do have strong opinions on things, that either having strong opinions means you have strong challenges. If you sit on the fence, people aren't going to challenge you. If you say, this is a thing, people are going to go, prove it, or I don't agree with you. Mm-hmm. We were talking slightly earlier about the division within the United States between Democrats and Republicans, and it's basically there isn't a common ground. You're wrong what you do, or you're right what you do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
neither side is going to agree with each other.
Or you can't even, I was thinking when you mentioned that, you can't have anyone look at all sides of the argument.
No.
Because he wants to do that these days.
Yeah.
He wants to have a rounded debate about anything these days.
Yeah. It almost has to be the extremes, doesn't it? It has to be. So I think what I was saying about challenges, the first thing which I just spoke to you off air about was being challenged yesterday by somebody, and I don't want to sort of go into details about it, but it was just interesting that I think two things. One, my reaction to the challenge was far calmer than I would have been without the mindfulness. But on the other hand, because I'm prone to overthinking, that challenge is still resonating in my mind today.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a little bit about the challenge you had in Costa and the damage challenges can do if they're done inappropriately. And I think both the one, which I'm not going to talk about, and the one that you did talk about, in their own way, are people challenging either what you're doing or what you're saying in a way that is almost predetermined that you are wrong. So the woman in Costa wasn't interested in a conversation or a debate. It was, she has her view, and therefore, because you didn't subscribe to that view, you could be challenged because you were wrong.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a conversation to be had.
No, I mean, for clarification, if by the letter of the law, I was in the wrong. I'm going to make a bit of a habit of that recently with my speeding misdemeanor. But, by the letter of, and I did check it at the time. Yeah. I should have worn the mask going into the place. However,
but the rule only changed on Thursday.
Of course, yeah, there's that. And if you go by the letter of what's been written, the establishment has the right and is encouraged to challenge you. No, I wasn't challenged, so I wasn't even reminded.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to give a bit of a rounded picture. She's not bang out of order.
Well, she is in terms of the nature of the challenge, and I think this is the point.
But I think it gets into dangerous territory when I'm being challenged on something I'm wearing or not wearing, rather than my view. Yeah. I mean, I guess the fact I'm wearing or not wearing it, I'm wearing my view or not wearing my point of view. Yeah. So it's a very, which started to get into my head a little bit. And actually gets quite dangerous, doesn't it?
But is that the point we've come to? The podcast that I mentioned from Sam Harris, they were talking about basically at the moment, there's a finite amount of time in the world. There's a finite amount of people's time. And I was thinking, we're up against Netflix at the moment. We want people to spend an hour with us rather than an hour with Netflix or on Facebook.
Yeah, I haven't thought of it like that.
So firstly, that's quite a bit of competition. But secondly, the point I was thinking in terms of the challenges is that when we're doing this podcast, I was thinking, am I trying to say things so that people will agree with me? Am I trying to go, I know this, so I'm going to tell you, and then you will confirm that I'm right by... And I was thinking, no, I'm not. What I'm trying to do, and I think both of us are trying to do, is putting out ideas, some of which might help people.
Yeah.
But it's that bit of starting a conversation rather than starting a debate, We're not trying to say that
Yes.
everything we're saying is right and therefore
I'm not trying to rile anybody up here.
No.
Are we?
And yet again, as I've done, and I've played a couple of them too, I've done my 12 random podcasts, and so many of them are people telling other people what to do. And we were talking about this should thing.
Yeah.
The difficulty or the danger of the word should. I don't think we've developed it as much as we thought.
Yeah.
So the thing on the challenge is, should is part of a challenge. You should wear a mask. You should do this. You should believe this.
Yeah.
And I think my reaction to challenges is karma. The effect they have on me probably isn't any less than it was. Mindfulness doesn't allow me to, at the moment, just sort of let that challenge go.
Yeah.
So the point I was going to say is I was challenged on something I wrote today by a good friend, an ex-client. And the nature of the challenge and the nature of the dialogue we had is what it should be about, is that he's challenged what I've said, put up a slightly different view. I've put up a slightly different view. And then one of the things I was going to do today is go, this is my longer answer to that challenge. But I felt the challenge it was almost like it was a conversation. It was two people going, we might have slightly different views on this. Both of us are probably prepared to change a little bit. Whereas most of the things on social media is, you must believe this. I mean, we're talking about the Black Lives Matter and taking the knee.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a couple of clubs now have said they're not going to take it.
Yeah.
But in the early days, all the clapping for carers, it was almost a dictate. This is going to happen.
And on the flip side, if you didn't,
a
little bit like the woman in Costa, actually, it was kind of, she was inflicting her view on me, and made me feel bad and insecure and anxious about my view.
Yeah.
Part of me goes, what right does she have to do that?
Yeah.
What right does anyone have to go over and tell you you're wrong or your view is wrong? And if you weren't clapping or seem to be, not seem to be clapping, but going out there so everyone can see. Actually, I got to the point where I don't know how much it was about clapping or being out there, being seen to be clapping, and how much of it was, if I don't, what people are going to think of me?
Yeah,
because that's almost what this thing is about. We're challenged almost. It's the silence is violence thing. By not doing something, there's a challenge. You are feeling there's a challenge there.
Yeah,
which I find more disturbing than any other kind of. It's almost like the unsaid is more kind of terrifying and more intrusive than my inaction.
No, I get what you're saying.
Me not doing something or going against a common view or a fashionable view, or
yes,
because also the clapping and the knee arguably is a period of time. It's not something any of us are going to be doing. I think it was the football club the other day who stopped taking the knee. Can't remember who it was.
I think it's QPR.
And then the manager said, well, we've decided not to. There isn't any directive to say we should be doing that. If the directive is take the knee, we will all take the knee. But they said we genuinely got to the point we thought it was just down to us.
Yeah.
And us not doing it has suddenly made us look like we don't care about this movement anymore. And of course we do. Yeah. But he said, we've stopped clapping the NHS. It doesn't mean I don't care any less about the NHS.
Exactly.
And I'm glad he came out and said that.
But there is this prevalence at the moment that there is a correct thing to do. And if you don't do the correct thing, you then need to explain why. Yeah. Rather than saying, I have a counter view. Yeah. Which is equally valid.
Of course.
And I'm sticking to that.
Yeah. And I don't have to tell you what it is.
Yes, exactly. I don't have to justify the fact that I don't think the same as you. Yeah.
It's interesting. Totally. It's quite in depth and quite intricate, actually, challenges.
Yeah.
So they can come from other people. They can manifest and become more of a challenge than they ever meant to be in the first place.
Yeah.
You're still reeling from yours.
Yeah, definitely.
Aren't you?
Yeah.
And that person is probably totally unaware that's even rattling around your head anymore.
And that challenge, as I described to you, was one word. It was just one inappropriate word that is now fermenting in my brain, which is maybe my issue as much. But it's that bit around, I think, we've got very shouty. Do you know what I mean? And I'm going to go against what I said. When we were chatting in the kitchen just now, I said to you, I'm listening to podcasts just to see what other people do. And I said, the one thing I'm not going to do is sit opposite you now and slag off other podcasts. So
in a new section,
we hate podcasts. No, the section I'm saying is that some of the podcasts I've been listening to are presenting as if they're giving the ultimate and only truth. Mm-hmm. That's what I find difficult. Not necessarily
the only opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like
it doesn't have to be facts, does it? It doesn't have.
No.
It's their truth, I guess. maybe what you were saying,
Yeah.
rather than a truth.
And I took a photograph today, which I'm just going to find very subtly on my phone before anyone notices. And I'll just show it to you. It says, "I'm mad about something I never researched."
Yeah.
And that's the position we've got to, that people will take a stand now based on what they've been told to believe or what their gut tells them, rather than...
Yeah.
And that was the challenge which we're going to talk to. And the guy that challenged me, it wasn't seen as a challenge, and I don't take it as a challenge. And I think it's exactly right that it's the start of a conversation. And it happened to be about vitamin D,
okay,
which was something that we'd been talking about before.
Yep.
And so that's really why I just want to go across to what happened, and then just to give my little bit on the vitamin D discussion. So background to this was...
Do you like any music?
Yeah, I'd love some music. I've gone deep and meaningful. I told you I'm suffering, and you played the bloody goat again.
I just felt I had to kind of have a little bit of light relief in here. It was getting a little bit heavy.
Was it?
Yeah. Even the light has changed outside. Have you noticed?
Autumnal, isn't it? We're past the equinox.
No, the whole kind of... You started getting serious and dark clouds came. Yeah. I just felt I had to lighten the... Sorry.
I'll be brief and I'll be light. So I put an Insta story up about some research that was done in Boston University. Dr. Hollick said that people who have enough vitamin D, and that word enough is important, are 54% less likely to catch coronavirus in the first place.
Yep.
It's a basic thing around immunity. It's a basic thing around vitamins and minerals, although we found out today vitamin D is a hormone, not a vitamin.
Yep.
But so be it. So what I wasn't saying was that this was a cure. What I'm saying is that there is evidence that people who have higher levels of vitamin D suffer less from COVID.
Yep.
There might be a whole number of other factors, but that's what I was putting out there.
Yes.
And so this close friend basically came up with saying this is a difficult one for the NHS because it would have to go through a number of trials with rigorous testing controls and a big group of subjects. And I agree with that because COVID's only been around a matter of months. You can't have longitudinal studies of how good vitamin D has been. So when he did this very balanced thing, I then texted him back with the word disagree, because obviously that's what conversations are. He put forward his proposals and he's wrong. Anyway, the point I was making was that, there's two sides to every story. And he was sort of saying at the moment around COVID, it's hard to see that there's enough trials and enough evidence. Now, my feeling is, how could you look at this? So I took a different mindset. And what I did was, I've written a load of stuff about vitamin D, which I'm not going to go into. So what I did is I just took this from a different aspect, because various people are going, well, how come in those countries with loads of sunshine, they're still getting very high COVID-19? And there is a reason for that, which I'll go to in a minute. But this is what I'm going to go through. I'm going to give some figures. And these are figures of the number of cases per million of the population of people dying from COVID. So Italy is 592, Spain 668, UK 617. So these are all the countries that we've heard about. And you could go, well, Italy and Spain have got a lot of sunshine, so that debunks your whole issue there, that if they're getting vitamin D from the sunshine, how come they're dying?
Yeah.
These are the other figures that I'm going to give. Denmark, bearing in mind those other ones are in the 600s.
Yeah.
Denmark 112, Finland 62, Norway 50, Iceland 29, and then Australia 34. I looked into this, and one of the things that happened, and I'll just read this, general vitamin D fortification, these are in some of the countries I mentioned, of all low-fat milk and dairy products, makes this group a significant contributor to vitamin D intake, along with oil-rich fish such as salmon and herring. In the other Nordic countries, Iceland and Norway, where milk is not routinely fortified, oil-rich fish and fortified fats are the predominant food sources. So in those countries, either the governments put vitamin D in the milk, or their diet, which is high in oily fish, is high in vitamin D. And so that's my argument, is that those countries have way, way less, about a tenth of what the other countries have. We don't fortify our milk in this country for children. So what we're basically saying in this country, there isn't enough evidence that vitamin D is going to make a difference. I've just listed 5 countries that fortify their milk, and Australia, which I hadn't realised does fortify their milk, and their COVID levels are a tenth. Now, that might not be the only thing, but it does seem quite coincidental to me.
Is there any arguments why you shouldn't put it in the milk?
No, and that's the other thing. The levels they're putting in are relatively low. The downside of vitamin D is if you take a massive, if you take supplements rather, because obviously you couldn't sort of overdose from the sun per se, could you? It's like you're not going to have so much vitamin D, but you can from supplements, because it does block calcium. But it's like literally, 8, 10, 12 times the normal recommended dose of the supplements. So you'd have to be just chucking down tablets. So no, there isn't a downside. And I'm just thinking, well, someone's going to then come back and go, you didn't mention Sweden. And Sweden's deaths are quite high. The interesting thing is if you look at the mortality rate for Sweden over the last 20 or 30 years, this year has been about the third best. So overall mortality in Sweden has been quite low this year.
Right.
So although a lot have been recorded as COVID deaths, it's more a recording thing than that the more people are dying in Sweden. And I'll put the graph up and people can look at it. And it's really interesting. Mortality in Sweden in this year is not high compared with most other years in the last 20, 25 years. So that's my little bit of the conversation, I guess. I'm going back to this guy and going, yeah, you've got a fair point. Some of them is anecdotal. Some of the studies are very small cases. But I'm sort of thinking there's no downside.
Yeah.
These are fortifying their milk and they're eating herring and salmon, which has a lot of vitamin D in.
And I would imagine there's vegetables and certain things, if you have too much of, is going to be unbalanced. But the overall benefit is, they're not doing any harm.
No.
Broadly. No. So why not?
Yeah. And those are...
It's like the mask, back of the masks. It's got to be doing something, right? We haven't got all the studies yet, but why not just be
Give
safe,
it a go.
Right? Yeah. Literally, no one is going to be any worse off by doing it.
No. And I'm not going to go into all this now because I know we've gone on for quite a while, but I did loads of research on this and I looked at one or two organizations. One's called NICE and there's another one which is a Scientific Council around Nutrition. And they have said, we've looked into this and basically there isn't enough evidence. So what my friend said was entirely right. There's not enough evidence at this stage to categorically say you should go from vitamin D. And one of the organizations I looked at vested interests. And ironically, one of the professors on the panel of this organization that said there isn't enough evidence, his vested interest was GlaxoSmithKline, the same organization that has been awarded the government contract for doing the vaccines.
Yeah.
And I just thought, maybe coincidence, maybe not.
Yeah.
There ends the sermon. Deep and meaningful.
That's good.
Thank you.
No, thank you. You've enlightened everybody. We had a couple of mailbags.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for sleeping?
We do. This person, who's also very keen on vitamin D, is keeping us going.
You can see where I was going with. I was trying to suggest it might have been another listener. It's from the same person.
It's the listener.
Yes,
he's
it is
prolific. I appreciate it. I appreciate it seriously because it was a good question. We're going to have a little closer look in forthcoming podcasts, and what we agreed is I'm not going to go, oh, make sure you've got, don't look at your phone when you go to bed, and make sure your bed's not too, everyone knows that. All I'm going to say is weighted blankets.
Okay.
So I'll leave that there.
No, you can't.
Okay. Just pause it.
Because
well, that gives some evidence.
I've not heard of such things. Electric blankets, I've heard of. Fire blankets, I've heard of. Comfort blankets.
Yeah, weighted blankets, you could actually do lifting as well. So you can actually increase your bone density as you sleep. Okay. Again, these trials are fairly recent because weighted blankets haven't been a thing. There's been some randomized control trials showing more likely to reduce insomnia and very much more likely to resolve insomnia compared to a control group. And I know it's not a massive sample. Weighted blankets are normally around 10 or 20 pounds. They're heavy blankets. That's what they are. And the study was with 120 adults, all with insomnia, and all of whom had either depression, bipolar, anxiety, or ADHD.
Right.
So it wasn't clear whether people with those conditions was benefit as much. That was what they looked at that particular thing. The feedback showed decreased daytime drowsiness, daytime activity level raised, reduced symptoms of fatigue, decreased depression, and increased anxiety. And this is the bit that I thought was really interesting. The blankets work by facilitating the release of oxytocin, which is also released in cuddling, petting, affection, and hugging.
Those things you've just listed aren't necessarily about compression.
No, I think
apart
it's
from
more
cuddling,
about...
there's
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what's the point of them being weighted? So it's going to give you some compression of some sort.
It's more around having that physical feeling of
Of being-
something around you that's more than just a light blanket. So it's feeling, so it brings out certain.
Okay. Wonder where that came from. Did it say where they came up with it?
I don't
Are
know. I mean,
okay.
I'll look into that more, but I was just thinking it's something. It's almost like this is the start of the conversation, isn't it? I don't know enough about it.
It's pretty much
Evidently.
our podcast.
But I'm just saying this is something, there have been some trials.
Okay.
And if someone's struggling with sleep, it might be worth digging into that themselves and just having a little look at weighted blankets. That's
Interesting.
all.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to ask you, you've allowed me access to some of our stats, which I feel is an honour.
Yeah, I have.
Not all of
With
them.
with the express instruction not to touch anything in there, because it's literally our podcast.
You did treat me like
I've
a
given-
12-year-old. You literally go, do not press any
I've
buttons.
given you the keys to our podcast.
And didn't you give
kingdom.
me the password for everything?
Well, I thought about that after. I had to change it, but it's actually my password. So my most secure password that I use for
Yeah.
most of my secure things in my life. Hopefully your phone hasn't remembered it, or you haven't got some kind of password thing where you can...
I don't think I'm going to rip you off.
That's okay.
Even if I have
You
some.
could, quite
Yeah.
easily. You have got nothing to hide. It's
No.
fine.
So the question I was
Yes,
going to
you've
say
got-
was two things. One is, we've talked about numbers, and I think this has got to be, I've listened to a couple of our earlier podcasts just to see where we're going. And I think we've got to be very careful not to go, oh, look at us. We're getting more and more popular.
The whole horse is bolted.
Has it?
But yeah, because every time you always start a lot of our conversations. We shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, but
Yeah.
and then
I guess
imagine this merchandising.
Yeah, okay.
Film
The
rights.
t-shirt.
Yeah. And I've got whoa. I'll be your feet on the ground. Shall I?
Yeah. I guess the point I'm saying is that listening to a lot of other podcasts, not a lot of them promote that they're getting a bit better in numbers. But we've talked a lot about numbers, and I think we've also talked about validation and affirmation, and I think it is important.
No one wants to be part of a sinking ship, do they?
No. But the question I wanted
Where's the
to
fun
ask
in
you,
that?
the question I really wanted
Yes.
to ask you, rather than just share all the figures, was the countries. I love the fact. Have we increased that range?
Yeah, I think we have.
Where are we at?
One
I've just
moment.
sprung this on you.
You have. But
The reason I
I can be
ask it
prepared.
is that there was two questions.
I can give you the list.
Okay.
Sorry, go on to
No, there's two questions in my mind. Are these people listening in those countries who have some link to the UK or link to people we know, or
that's a good point.
some shared interests, and that's how they found us? Or are they random people like myself who've gone through the internet picking random podcasts
Yeah.
and decided to listen to them?
Because I think I went, we've got a listener in Australia. You went, that's because so-and-so said.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go through the whole list, and actually we've worked out we know someone from each
No,
of these.
I don't think many of them are. I think Switzerland and Australia.
There's a few new ones. Do you want me to go through the list? Would you
Yeah,
like to-
just a general. I mean,
give
I
our-
guess this is a shout out to those people as well, if they're listening. I mean, I
That's
I
what
know
we
we've
tried-
been pressing bloody Texas since week 2, and they've obviously buggered off, but there must be somebody that would. I just find it
Hopefully.
interesting.
Yeah, I do. The
The world's a small place.
So United Kingdom, obviously, United States, Switzerland, Germany, France, Netherlands, Ireland, Pakistan, Luxembourg, Australia, Canada, and Portugal.
Okay, is Portugal a new one?
Yeah,
Okay,
it is. So that's pretty cool. And then you can click on each of those areas.
you haven't
Actually,
given
might-
me access to that, have you?
no,
No.
I think you need to do it on the desktop. But if you click into the United States, we've got Virginia, Oregon, Washington, Texas, and New Jersey. And we're pretty big in Virginia right now.
Does that mean 2?
Which is, it's in percentages. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone loves percentages, don't they?
I love
They're
Virginia.
very flat. Do
The rolling hills.
you love Oregon as well? And Washington
Yeah,
and New Jersey?
big up to all of those.
I mean, it's the balancing. It's good to celebrate our small victories.
Yeah,
We can't get too...
ahead of ourselves.
no, absolutely not.
You tried the granola I made for you yet?
No, I haven't.
I expressly gave it to you on Thursday and
You-
said, eat this on Friday.
You said, yeah, because I want to talk to you about it on Friday,
Yeah.
is what you said. And I haven't.
So I thought, well, at least Saturday's
And
here.
then I thought, and then we got up and we went out and
Got accosted in Costa. Acosta.
yeah. But think about it, if I'd had your granola,
Life would have been different.
I would-
Coincidences.
I wouldn't have had content
The
for
granola-
today's.
Yeah, but it would have protected your mental health from that
Yeah,
witch in
but
Costa.
I think in a way, sometimes, don't know whether to touch on this, but sometimes if you you kind of do yourself an injustice by trying to avoid some things.
Mhm.
It's that thing about, that kind of analogy about lowering your guard. You're going to take a few punches to the face, but you're going to be better off for it.
Yeah.
So if you went around with your guard up all the time, or, didn't open yourself up for criticism or
Yeah.
or verbal abuse, I don't know. I like to think it's broadened my horizon a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Good.
Having someone to
Someone wish you dead on a Saturday morning.
yeah, it's odd. It's very odd. But,
I think you got over it pretty well, though.
still talking about it 3-4 hours later. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
AOB.
No, don't start me on that.
Okay. That's it for this episode. Well done for getting this far, and thanks for listening. All links and references are in our show notes. Please give us a follow and leave some comments on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the username I'mFinecast, or write to us at imfinecast@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be absolutely marvellous. As long as you give 5 stars, you can say what you like.
Yeah.
I think that's a deal we can cut.
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned to you the podcast that I was listening to that basically said, we're giving up all our bloody time. The least you can do is do a review, which I thought was a bit harsh.
Yeah.
But it would be nice. We'd like to
I'd be
receive.
very, very grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It's nice. I haven't got anything for next.
We didn't really talk about football and testosterone. Why don't we make next week a lads special? We'll talk about football, testosterone and beer. For people that don't drink.
Yeah.
Don't go to football.
Yeah, or not really keen on testosterone.
Yeah.
I think it sounds good.
Yeah.
I think we've got to cover all bases. We can do that. There we are. That's next week's episode. Sorted out. That's it. We'll see you then.
Okay.
Bye.
Be good.